Here is what you need to know about Microsoft's new recall feature. In Windows 11 24H2, Microsoft will force Windows 11 users on that release of Windows to have recall on their computer. Recall is a utility which actively takes screenshots every 5 seconds, and Microsoft claims that they don't know where those screenshots go, and that they are locally stored and encrypted. But your trust in Microsoft is what will lead to you getting arrested by the police for something you never did. Recall is going to be a weapon for the police forces and surveillance states of this world. It's not a good or beneficial feature for us as the consumer. Instead, recall will be used to silence critics and arrest people for crimes they haven't even committed yet. Picture this: you're someone who likes to download a lot of pirated material. Piracy is punishable by up to 10 years in prison and fines up to and over $100,000, though piracy laws vary by country, and some countries such as Spain do not prohibit downloading copyrighted works for personal use. However, if you use Windows, which let's face it, the majority of the world runs Windows, and nobody gives a flying fuck about alternatives such as Linux. Linux only appeals to nerds like me who are interested in that sort of thing. The average Joe could not care any less about what OS he uses. He actually is more concerned about the software available for his system, and since Windows has by far the largest library of software, and Windows is the only platform you can do gaming on, do not get me started on gaming with Linux. You just can't do it. I mean, sure, you can play Solitaire, Minesweeper, and Super Tux Kart, but you're not able to natively play Windows-only titles such as Forza Horizon or Grand Theft Auto, and emulators exist to run Windows software in Linux. But what is the point of switching to Linux if you're just gonna keep using the same old proprietary overpriced software you've been using for God knows how long? Don't bother switching to Linux if all you're gonna do is carry your Windows games and software with you. Switching to Linux is about embracing free software, and for most people, that free software just isn't a good enough of a compelling reason for them to move to Linux. Microsoft Recall is claimed spyware by Linux fanboys. Well, luckily for you, I am not a Linux fanboy. I am not a fanboy in general. I don't do that nonsense that those Linux fanboys do. I cannot stand those Linux people that say, Windows users out of their fucking minds. It really bugs me, and I really feel like some people haven't moved past the Stone Ages. No offense. Microsoft Recall was initially only available on Copilot Plus laptops. However, Microsoft recently reverted their decisions, and they have now decided to force this spyware down everyone's throats. That is, everyone who is using Windows 11 24H2. Luckily for me, my gaming rig is on Windows 11 23H2. And if you want to know if recall is enabled, check out Brian's video on how to see if your Windows 11 PC has Copilot installed and running. Links to his videos will be in the description below. Microsoft Recall is not going to be turned on by default. Microsoft may want to try and make it so we cannot disable or turn off Recall, but that goes against the privacy laws of many countries. In most places, a computer program that collects your personal information without your explicit consent is generally against the law and could potentially result in Microsoft facing lawsuits. Thus, I believe Microsoft will do a last-minute thing before rolling out Recall to the world. So while we are hearing that they want to force Recall onto us, it's more likely that we will be able to opt in and out of Recall, and it will not be turned on by default. And if you live in the European Union, you're a lucky bastard. There are already laws in Europe which requires Microsoft to let their users uninstall Microsoft Edge and Copilot, which also means you can easily remove Recall if you are worried that Microsoft is secretly snooping in on your locally stored screenshots. And here's something I want to stress to all of you. This is nothing new or innovative. The state has had this kind of power for the longest time. You don't think the cops can record your screen and see exactly what you're up to? Of fucking course they can. So can the government. They can literally tap into your phone, tablet, game console, PC, laptop. Everything that's connected to the internet is at their fingertips, which means that they can see what you're doing, what time it happened, where it happened, and so on and so forth. So Microsoft Recall is really just adding in on the already existent surveillance state and its technologies. Plus, malware can also let hackers take screenshots and record your screen. So don't be fearful of Microsoft standardizing this sort of feature. Recall is just the same thing except it's being produced by a tech giant. And even if you're skeptical about Microsoft's claims, which you definitely should be, don't stop using Windows because you're fearful of Recall. Even if Microsoft do go ahead and force Recall onto us, smarties will find various workarounds which will let us disable or prevent Recall from running, and if there is enough backlash from the general public, Microsoft may scrap Recall altogether, or they may continue only selling Recall on Copilot Plus PCs and laptops. So whatever the case, we have to wait and see what Microsoft's final decision is. And here's the thing. The moment you install Windows and turn on your Windows PC, Microsoft is already spying on you. The moment you connect to the internet, telemetry data is already being collected and sold for a profit by Microsoft, and Apple is no better with their Macintosh computers. But Apple does have the decency to let you easily disable the built-in telemetry on iOS and Macintosh systems, but Apple still has all your data. Androids, same problem. Now you have to trust Google to not misuse your data, and if you have seen Google's history, we all know how much disregard Google has for personal safety and information. They don't care whether your information lands on the dark web, or on the clear net. What's important is that Google makes its quick stash of cash, rather than improving the product and quality of services, such as Google Search, which has become notoriously useless in more recent times. Sometimes I wonder why people still use Google. Well, for the same reasons that people use Windows, Google is the only search engine with reasonable answers to almost every question and topic in the universe. And until DuckDuckGo can have the same level quality results as Google, there's just no hope of the alternatives ever taking off. And you need to look at Windows and Linux in a similar way, unless there's a giant tech revolution where we go on strike and stop using big tech services and products. Mate, that's the only way we could bring Linux to the forefront of the show, and until such things happen, Microsoft and Apple will continue ruling us with an iron fist. You must remember that we live in a world where might makes right, and that's the only thing that matters. Now I totally am opposed to such things, but the majority of people don't bat an eyelid at surveillance or might makes right. Most people think it's totally normal, or maybe they think that Microsoft has all their data, so what does it matter anyway? Well, I hate to break it to you, but even if you believe such things, the clear and present danger lies right in front of your eyes. Sadly, nobody is talking about Recall and how it could be weaponized against the population, which is my sentiments exactly. Microsoft wants to improve upon the state surveillance and they are hungry for more of your personal data. And did you know that Windows does not collect personal data? Most of the data is associated with your computer, not you, the user, but that data can still reveal your real identity and where you live. So if the cops want to arrest you for downloading a movie, you cannot stop them from doing that, because now Microsoft has given the police access to all computers running Recall, meaning the cops can tape into those systems, look at the screenshots taken with Recall, and use those screenshots as evidence against you in a court of law, where you will be going to prison for the rest of your life just because you downloaded a single latest hit film. Well, you should have thought about switching to Linux, you dumb cunt. It's your fault for trusting Microsoft and the police to do the right thing. Lesson be learned, kids. Do not believe anything that a tech giant like Microsoft says. Everything they say is a lie. Do not trust the cops to do the right thing. They act with complete impunity and are never held to account. Plus, they constantly cover up their incompetence with corruption, and they pervert the course of justice non-stop. So where does this lead? Millions of innocent Windows users going to prison for a crime they haven't even done yet. We are literally living in 1984, where the thought police arrest people for thinking a certain thing. Microsoft Recall is just a digital modernized version of 1984. Yet, nobody sees Recall as being dystopian or evil, and if you think Recall is going to be used for good purposes, I honestly don't know what else I can tell you, because you are clearly brainwashed and you believe that the cops are the good guys. when I have clearly presented to you guys that the cops are anything but the people that they are made out to be on the mainstream media. The cops are more likely to arrest you for using Linux than hand someone a speeding ticket. How crazy is that? They really don't want you getting ahead in this world if you're a poor person. So what's one of the best ways to stop people getting ahead? Make Linux a crime and make it a jailable offense to use Linux. So now, anyone that uses Linux is liable for 25 years in prison, with hefty fines. Do not say I am conspiratorial. This is an undeniable fact. The cops will arrest you for using Linux, but they won't arrest a rapist who murdered a young girl walking home late one night. That's the sad, pathetic truth of our harsh reality, because the cops are absolute dunderhead morons. They cannot catch anyone who poses a real threat to them. Instead, they go hunting down tech-savvy people who like free and open-source software, because it makes a cop feel good when he has just arrested someone for not supporting Microsoft. The cops literally believe that Linux users are very bad people who need to be locked up forever, and sadly, it seems like people have actually gone to prison just for choosing to not support Microsoft or Apple. It seems like going your own way is going to land you in deep trouble with the authorities, so don't do it unless you're prepared to lose your entire life. Do not switch to Linux unless you're prepared to spend the rest of your life in prison for not supporting a big tech giant. There are new laws which literally say that if you choose to use a product which is not made by any of the big tech giants, you are criminally liable for prison time and prosecution. How fucking insane is that? The cops want to silence free software and make sure that if you cannot afford Windows licenses and expensive software, well, that's just too bad for you then, isn't it? Looks like you're gonna have to do it tough and have no electronic devices, because we are the crooked cunt force and we hate it when poor people get a hand up in this world. We trample them underfoot deliberately so that they never get any step further than where they are currently at. That's about the size of the police force. Australian police, American cops, British, they are all as corrupt and fucked up as each other, and don't even get me started on Russian and Chinese police. That's a whole other level of corruption and incompetence. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.